England, go. You know all about England. You've followed them. You've watched a lot of their recent games. So yeah, talk us through this team. What are you expecting to see from this team in particular?
Well, obviously there's always excitement and anticipation and expectation for an English football team. Most of that always ends in crushing defeat and heartbreak, but who knows, this summer that might all change with the tournament obviously being hosted in this country. So much has happened since England last competed in a major tournament, 2019 World Cup, agonisingly losing to the USA, who eventually won it. Under Phil Neville, obviously management's changed since then. Sarina Wiegman's come in as head coach, and she is probably one of the best coaches in the world right now. I think what she's changed, not so much mentally, I think there are obviously some things that come with her having led the Netherlands to a home Euros victory and also to a World Cup final. I think there's some of that success that you would breed in terms of kind of psychologically, but I think tactically, she's been really good at getting the best out of England because she's really exploited England's depth, because having played host to one of the only fully professional leagues in the world, there aren't many in women's football at the moment. It's increasing, it's growing, but the WSL was the first in Europe and is still, you know, one of the few in the world. I think Wiegman's really tapped into that depth and really started to understand the tools that England have at their disposal. And I think we've seen in past England eras under certain head coaches, there was a reliance on certain names and certain players regardless of their form in the leagues. And they would always be a guaranteed starter. And I think Sarina Wiegman's brought in a bit more of ruthless decision making and picked players a lot more based on their domestic form. Now I say that, but Ellen White is someone who actually hasn't had the best domestic season for her club, Manchester City, but she will probably start for England in this tournament because she's a different animal at major tournaments. She broke into the sort of world football at her first World Cup in 2011 when she scored a ridiculous goal against Japan, and she hasn't kind of really looked back for England since. She was tremendous at the Olympic Games, scoring 6 goals for Team GB, a hat-trick in the quarter-final defeat to Australia. A hat-trick and England still lost the game was pretty ridiculous. And she was tied for the most goals at the World Cup in 2019, but didn't take away the Golden Boot in the end. But she is someone who really thrives in major tournaments. So I think we'll still see her start, despite the poor form.
It's worth saying, I think, at this point that we've got Ellen White, who we all know about, but then we've got these two exciting wide players in Lauren Hemp and Beth Mead, who we know are going to get down these lines and they're going to be able to then find Ellen White in the box. And I think that adds another element, doesn't it, to what we're expecting from Ellen White. Yeah,
and a massive part of England's success will be on White and whether she can hold her runs in time. She has a propensity at the moment, as do a lot of players when they get a little bit older, to stray offside as they anticipate they can't time it right. And I think her finishing has kind of dropped off as a result as well, which I think you naturally see with players as they get a little bit older, but she still is a very good forward, and you know, stats don't lie, she's the record goal scorer for England now. But like you say, these two outsides, left and right, are going to be so important for England. Lauren Hemp on the left, this has been an outstanding season for her. She won the PFA Young Player of the Year award for the 4th time. I feel like you should just graduate from that award, but hey ho. So she's someone who has always been really highly rated. She struggled with injury last season, but she's managed to stay fit pretty much the entire season, and she's been in such good form for England as well. She is so hard to defend against. In England's recent 5-1 victory over the Netherlands, when they went a goal down, they didn't get the ball to Hemp enough in that game, but as soon as they brought her into play, she just takes on players. She has no fear, and we often see that with players that are younger, but she's very aggressive in the way she plays. She wants to take on players. She's quite direct as well, and I think England are going to thrive on that. And then when we look at Beth Mead as well, she's coming off the back of a very good season for Arsenal. She's really hard to play against, and she's a good finisher. She is England's in-form player in World Cup qualifying, so that's really exciting for England. But then also when you look to the bench, there is so much depth in the team. Can we look at Chloe Kelly for Manchester City? She can come on and replace Mead, and it's that dangerous winger option that Sarina Wiegman has that is going to be the way England thrive this tournament. And Chloe Kelly has been so good. She spent about 9 months out with an ACL injury, just came back in about April time, but has already been really important for England. I think she's going to be used probably more as a substitution player. She'll probably start a few games, but you know, she's not as in form as Mead is, especially with her injury. Ella Toone as well, someone who's come off a very good season for Manchester United. We've seen her play in a kind of false nine role, but she does drop back even a little bit more. She can also play on the left. She's played on the left for Manchester United, but she can also play behind White and support her a little bit. She's, really aggressive as well. We saw her come on against the Netherlands and really make that left-hand side tough to defend. But probably where we're going to see England perhaps have a little bit of a weakness is going to be on this left-hand side defensively, because we've seen Serena Wigman opt to play Rachel Daly at left back for the last few games. Now, she is not a left back. She plays up front for her club. She's the record goal scorer for the Houston Dash and the NWSL. But for England, she's kind of filled in at right back quite a lot when Lucy Bronze has been injured or not started. But we've seen Serena Wigman start to use her as a left back. Obviously, she's right-footed. She's playing out of position, but because of her ability going forward, I think in some of the group games, perhaps against Austria and Northern Ireland, we'll see Serena Wigman opt for her because she's going to be really aggressive. She's going to push up. And Demi Stokes, who we see on the bench, she's just a little bit more risk averse. She's been the starting left back for England for a while, but she's also struggled with a few injuries recently. And I think Serena Wigman's looking for a bit more of an aggressive play on that left-hand side. But then at the same time, that can be a weakness. Lucy Bronze as well, who has won the FIFA Best Award, been a Ballon d'Or runner-up. She's got a little bit older. She's lost some of that speed, physicality, and she's become a potential weakness for England now. I think in the Arnold Clark Cup, which was an invitational tournament, when England played against Spain, we saw Spain really target Lucy Bronze. And I think that's going to be interesting for her this tournament, how she copes with that. We've seen her take perhaps a few too many risks, but there is so much balance here for this team. There's so much depth. And I think that is going to be one of the strongest things that England have at their disposal.
Really interesting hearing you talking about players playing out position, because I think this England team is just full of players who've played in other positions probably more recently. We've got Alex Greenwood as well, who's played as a left back as well now, have moved inside as a centre back. Millie Bright started out life further forward in midfield. Leah Williamson, we've seen play a centre back for her club as well. So what element do you think that adds to this team, the sort of flexibility that they have there to be able to mix players around if they need to?
Yeah, definitely. There's the flexibility and a versatility to this team. Fran Kirby, we've seen she's played outright for Serena Wigman, but she's also played behind Ellen White. She's coming back into full fitness. Leah Williamson, it seems like she's going to be wanting to play alongside Leah Walsh in this kind of double pivot, but she's also pushing forward so much, not really in a traditional defensive midfield role. Against the Netherlands, we saw her much higher up the pitch. Kira Walsh is such a good player. She has really good passing range. She has really good vision on the ball and is a very reliable player for England. So yeah, there's just so much depth here. Like you say, there's so much versatility and flexibility for this team. I think it's just going to be set pieces where we've seen England struggle recently. And under Phil Neville, they got this reputation as not being able to defend set pieces. And the goal that they conceded against the Netherlands was from a corner. The goal that they conceded against Germany, which was in the Arnold Clark Cup in February, that was from a free kick. So there's a little bit of defensive weakness there when it comes to set pieces. And we also haven't seen them concede a whole lot of goals under Serena Wigman because there's been some one-sided World Cup qualifiers. So I think that's going to be interesting as well, is how they cope in those scenarios when you're not really used to having to come from a goal down. You've got to find something there.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic brings you the best sports journalism in the world in a personalised experience, connecting you with the stories and teams that you care about the most. There's coverage of 13 sports, plus direct access to world-class journalists through live Q&As, discussions and podcasts. Not to mention, it's all ad-free. And you can try it now for free for 30 days by clicking the link in the description.